Well, he's a very cool old boy, the Italian, if he's got this well under control, because all the time the split seconds being whittled away by this battling British pairing of Neil Hodgson and Chris Walker. And as they come across the line now and the sunshine comes out onto them, they've got the gap down to 2.1 seconds, 22 out of 25 laps completed. And wow, wouldn't it be something if British Superbike racers ran this length and this hot? Well, right now, Neil Hodgson, who's of course had experience, 3 seasons experience of World Superbike racing, he knows about this distance. Chris Walker, formerly a 500 Grand Prix rider, he knows about long race distances. And Walker, of course, so desperately keen to get back into and onto the World Superbike stage. And here he is putting everything into performing here at Donington Park to see if that's remotely possible. Well, we know that the Alstara Corona team have almost lost the end of their tether with Katsuaki Fujiwara, and here's Chris proving what a Suzuki should do, Rob.
Oh, Patricia Batter, my long talk with her yesterday was saying just that, Jack, you're quite right, but there's not, I don't believe, having spoken with Patricia, going to be any mid-season changes, because the Alstara Corona team don't want to poach or be seen to be poaching Chris Walker or anybody else for that matter, and leave anybody compromised in the UK racing scene.
Here's Walker now, diving up the inside once again. Now, he takes this wide line, and remarkably, as he steps it sideways going in, on a couple of occasions, he's found the space underneath on the exit to Melbourne, which is not a thing I've ever seen anybody else do. And he carries himself underneath Neil Hodgson. He didn't manage it that time. He goes into Goddard's. Neil Hodgson, Neil's riding a brilliant race under pressure here. He's just holding those cool lines, and the gap as they go past us now has really shrunk 1.5 seconds, and with 2 laps to go, that's 23 gone out of 25, and Frankie Killy is well within sight.
Well, Neil Hodgson had to make up 0.7 of a second for the remaining 3 laps that we were talking about a little while ago. He's made 0.8 of a second up on the first of those 3 laps. Just 1.5 seconds behind Frankie Killy, but I still stand by that Frankie Killy is controlling this from front. He will have seen his lap boards, and I believe that Frankie will just put a little bit more of a spurt on in the GSXR 750 Suzuki, but they're both in the same frame now. That is just coming down to a shootout finale and just a lap and a half to go, but I still think Frankie's got things under control. Jack?
As they go through Coppice, Frankie Killy controlling things from the front, we think, but it's getting awfully lively on the Alstara Corona Suzuki. He could tell us that, and he wasn't too happy with his second place in the first race. He knows he wants to win the second one. He's confident he can. Neil Hodgson, he's confident in that Ducati and the tyres on it, and he's beginning to close in. We're going down towards the last lap. Norihaga's out of it. He's settled for the World Championship lead. His tyres are shot. He's not going to get any closer, and Norihaga will finish the race probably in 4th place. Hayden is now in back in. Oh, we've lost John Reynolds. After a brilliant race, we've lost John Reynolds. He's disappeared. Yanagawa's 5th, Hayden 6th, Bostrom 7th, and Slight in 8th place. But at the front, this is what we're focused on. If Frankie Killy's got this under control, then he's one of the coolest customers I've ever met. My hat goes off to him. 0.996 of a second into the last lap, and Hodgson, spurred on by the sight of Frankie Killy, has suddenly escaped from the amazing Chris Walker, who's been just riding the absolute wheels, fairing and handlebars off that Clarion Suzuki. They plunge downhill. Look at the line, that impeccable line of Frankie Killy's, keeping himself mid-track on the right line for the Melbourne hairpin, streaking up through Schwantz towards McLean's under Starkey's Bridge. Chris Walker desperately tried to stay close, but right now, if they stay on 2 wheels, this looks like it's going to be the 1, 2, 3 in the second race, although the order by no means yet certain, because Neil Hodgson is focused on Frankie Killy. He is really focused on Frankie Killy. Oh, and Frankie has a huge one as they approach the second, and here comes Neil Hodgson. Hodgson goes past. Killy had a huge moment coming out of Coppice, and Neil Hodgson is able to take advantage, and Killy's tyres are shot. He tries to go underneath. He can't make it as they go through the S's, and Neil Hodgson is there at the front, and Chris Walker comes past, and Killy's race is run. Poor Frankie Kelly. This race has gone on 2 laps too long, or even just 1 lap too long. It's going to be a British 1-2 by the British Superbike guys here at Donington Park in the second race. Frankie Kelly looks despairingly over his shoulder as he comes up away through the Melbourne, away from Melbourne hairpin to Goddard's, and the crowd is on its feet. Here comes a British 1-2. Hodgson shakes his head in disbelief. The INS Ducati's won it. Second place for the National Tyres Clarion Suzuki, and third place for an absolutely dejected Frankie Kelly. My heart goes out to him. We just don't know what happened. Francis Batter can't believe what's happened. It looks as if there were no tyres left on the thing. Aaron Slight comes round Goddard's. What a fantastic return for him. He's still, I think he might have retaken Ben Bostrom. Amazingly, the 34-year-old Kiwi finishes in 7th place and punches the air in delight. That is some achievement after such a long layoff. Andy Meklau will come across in 9th place, and Haruo Aoki, former 125cc world champ, 10th. But the man that we're all focused on, look at these guys. The British fans, well, we didn't have Carl Fogarty here, but we had Neil Hodgson and Chris Walker, boys and girls, and this is the response. Oh, Neil Hodgson, he must be so thrilled with that. And I tell you what, the boss man from Ducati Corse, who came straight to see him after he got on provisional pole yesterday, I think he'd be going to see him again.
Neil Hodgson answered the words from Carl Fogarty, because Foggy said, well, there's no reason why we shouldn't have a British race winner here at Donington Park, and Neil Hodgson has answered that question and took the chance, took the opportunity when Frankie Kelly had that enormous high side and managed to stay in the saddle at Cobby's Corner on the last lap, went through, followed closely by Chris Walker. Well, Jack, I think if Neil Hodgson doesn't carry on, we won't see him back at the finish grid, because the crowds have gone wild. The St George flag there. This time it's for Neil Hodgson, no longer at this race meeting for Carl Fogarty, it's for Neil Hodgson. So Neil has beaten all the factory's best and managed to hold off Chris Walker and has taken the race win that Carl Fogarty predicted. What a brilliant day for British racing, and a brilliant day even for naked people there on trackside for Neil Hodgson and the GSE INS racing team. Brilliant stuff. I'm thrilled, Jack, you're thrilled. Ah, fabulous stuff.
Colin Wright there, the team manager of the INS GSE Ducati team, taking the congratulations in the orange shirt. His father, Alec Wright, was the fabled team manager of the Works Kawasaki Motocross Grand Prix team for many years. He learned the trade the good way. Neil Hodgson wins it then. Chris Walker, a valiant, fabulous second for Suzuki. Frankie Kelly third for Suzuki. Noriaga fourth for Yamaha, moves back into the championship lead. Akira Yanagawa, a brilliant 5th place for the guy with the just about mended collarbone. Jamie Hayden inherits 6th place because we lost his British Championship leading teammate John Reynolds. 7th for Slight, fantastic. He retaliated against Ben Bostrom after Bostrom had passed him. Meklau 9th, 10th Aoki, 11th Antonello on the Aprilia that survived. Remember, Troy Corsa went out very early. John Crawford on the 2nd of the National Tyres Clarion Suzuki's in 12th place. And Katsuaki Fujiwara, he's 13th. Well, that's a respectable finish for him, but not compared to Chris Walker, it isn't. Vito Goreski 14th, and another former 125cc world champion, Gramini, is 15th on the Team Valley Yamaha. And Luca Cadalora, well, on Fogarty's bike, 17th place. Not quite perhaps what Ducati Infrastrada expected. But why worry about that one? And look at Frankie Kelly. Frankie Kelly is, I think, probably very upset. Oh, has he hurt himself? There's a doctor there with Frankie. What's happened? We'll have to try and find out. Perhaps we'll find out from Frankie. And Frankie, sporting applause from the crowd. A thumbs up from a man in an Alstara Corona shirt. So obviously something's wrong with Frankie. His lovely wife comes and flings her arms round him and gives that's the best thing you can get when you're feeling that bad, is a big hug from a lovely, a beautiful Romina, Italian wife.
Yeah, Romina, she's never too far away from Frankie Kelly.
So Frankie Kelly gets bundled into the safety car. We don't know what's happened with him, and we'll have to try and find out. Look at that guy, Aaron Slight, and behind him we've got the number 45 machine of Jamie Hayden, who ended up in 6th place. A very respectable result indeed for the guy who's lying 3rd in the British Superbike Championship for Revy Red Bull Ducati. And again, we'll have to try and find out what happened to JR, because he was having a blinding race behind Akira Yanagawa up until the last 3 or 4 laps. So the crowd have really enjoyed themselves here today. Was it worth coming to Donington Park? Was it worth switching on Eurosport? Yes, it certainly was. What a fantastic race. And what an uncomfortable pillion passenger, but you're not going to mind when you're out in the raging heat of Donington Park. Warming up, in fact, for Monza next weekend and the next round of the championship. Haga leads then on 130 to 119 for Edwards. 95, that could so easily have been 104 points there for Frankie Keeley. 77 for a disappointed Troy Corser. 5th place for Gregorio Lavia, who went out of that race. And Isuzu, Yanagawa, Neil Hodgson is now up into 8th place in the championship as a result of having such a brilliant day right here.
Far away from Frankie Keeley.
So Frankie Keeley gets bundled into the safety car. We don't know what's happened with him, and we'll have to try and find out. Look at that guy, Aaron Slight, and behind him we've got the number 45 machine of Jamie Hayden, who ended up in 6th place. A very respectable result indeed for the guy who's lying 3rd in the British Superbike Championship for Revi Red Bull Ducati. And again, we'll have to try and find out what happened to JR, because he was having a blinding race behind Akira Yanagawa up until the last 3 or 4 laps. So the crowd have really enjoyed themselves here today. Was it worth coming to Donington Park? Was it worth switching on Eurosport? Yes, it certainly was. What a fantastic race. And what an uncomfortable pillion passenger, but you're not going to mind when you're out in the raging heat of Donington Park. Warming up, in fact, for Monza next weekend and the next round of the championship. Haga leads then on 130 to 119 for Edwards. 95, that could so easily have been 104 points there for Frankie Keeley. 77 for a disappointed Troy Corser. 5th place for Gregorio Lavia, who went out of that race. And Isuzu, Yanagawa, Neil Hodgson is now up into 8th place in the championship as a result of having such a brilliant day right here, with 2nd, 3rd and 1st places at Donington Park. So it's been, well, a breathtaking. Chrissy Walker's in 12th place as well after his gallant efforts here. It's been an amazing day at Donington Park, and the SBK Superbike World Championship manufacturer standings. Yamaha lead it on 147, Honda 128, Kawasaki 112, Suzuki 110. It's almost as tight as the actual Riders' Championship. And that was the moment that did cost Frankie Keeley victory here at Donington Park. Frankie Keeley loses the lead on the last lap, on the last half lap